Seam heads. Our Giants game day coverage begins now.
It's the mosaic.
So before gloves start popping,
diving, he makes the catch,
and bats start cracking,
it is gone.
We bring you the voice of Bay Area baseball for the past 29 years.
As I always say, baseball reflects what life is all about.
This is Talkin' Baseball with Marty Laurie.
That's what we do. We talk ball.
On KNBR, the sports leader.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Talkin' Baseball on this Saturday morning as we get ready for Game 2 between the Giants and the Phillies. And it's with the fifth game of this road trip. Giants lose 2 of 3 in Fenway Park. Mike Yastrzemski had a big home run. That was fun. And then last night they lose to the Phillies 4-3 in a very tight game that had all sorts of twists and turns on it. And here we are. It's May the 4th, 33 games down, and the Giants are 15-18, and still in the midst of a whole group of teams with 15, 16, 17, 18 losses. And we've had some teams that have sort of separated a little bit. And you're looking at the Brewers, the way they've played, and winning their 20th game in 31 tries, which is unusual for them to be able to do that. You've got Atlanta and the Dodgers meeting down in L.A., and the Dodgers won that one last night, but teams that with 20 wins or more. And then, of course, you get the Phillies, who are now in the lead in the National League East, as the Phillies are now 22-11 with their win last night. So it's still very early in the baseball season. The Giants are not hitting. We know that. The Giants have scored 19 runs in their last 8 games. Last night we thought it would be a game of pitching. Both of these teams have tremendous starting staffs. You look at the quality starts in baseball, and the Giants and Phillies are right up there at the top. And then last night you get in the game, and the starting pitchers are gone. After 4 innings, and they threw close to 90 pitches in 4 innings, and they both were gone. But it was one of those games, the Giants are just not hitting. And I've said that for a few weeks now. And you look at the middle of the order, it's just not happening. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen for the whole season. Baseball is one of those cyclical games where all of a sudden you get hot for 2 weeks and everything looks so much better. But right now they're not hitting. This is a ball club that's hitting .238. Their on-base percentage is .303, and they're slugging, my goodness, .367. So that's not going to get it done. Let's face it, I don't care how well you pitch, and it's putting a lot of pressure on the starting staff. And Jordan Hicks last night went 4 innings, 4 hits, and he gave up 4 runs. 2 were earned last night, and as I listened to Kerry last night and Glenn Kuiper after the game talking about it, how many times are you going to see Matt Chapman make 2 errors in a game? It's just not going to happen. But he made 2 last night, and they were very costly and ended up giving Hicks some extra pitches and extra trouble, and he couldn't get out of it. He's still a work in progress. As good as Hicks is, the arm is solid. He's still someone that's got to be brought along very carefully. And look, Andrew Bailey got blurred vision last night. You know, it's interesting about these catchers, and maybe Bruce Jenkins and I will talk about it, but in the world today with velocity, everything is velocity, 97, 98, 99, and you get a lot of foul tips, and the foul tips end up right in that mask of the catcher, and Bailey ended up with some blurred vision last night. He had to get out of the game, and it brought Tom Murphy into the game, which, again, really almost decided the game. Murphy is what we call a rusty catcher. He hasn't played for a couple of years, and he's still working his way back into major league shape. And he hurt the Giants last night. The Giants were down 3-2. And as I said, Hicks gave up those 3 runs after the error by Chapman, and he couldn't get Marsh out, and got a hit. Alec Boehm, 16-game hitting streak, drove in another run. So Estrada had the big double, put the Giants up 2-0. Castellanos is awful. He can't play right field. He can't hit either. I don't know what the Phillies are going to do with him. The Giants went up 2-0, and now they're down 3-2. And then in the 4th inning, you get a situation at the plate where Murphy's got to catch a high splitter. Now, it wasn't a low splitter. It was, I'll do it on the stream with my hand if you're watching me on the stream. It was up there, and it hit the glove, and it went off his glove. He thought he caught it, and he never reacted, and the ball went to the side. And here comes Trey Turner, who's just so quick, and the slides are beautiful, from second base, and he rounds third, and the ball's off to the side. And Turner's going to score. He's going to try to score. Hicks, all of a sudden, the alarm clock goes off, and he decides to cover the plate and gets there in time. And Murphy throws the ball high and wide. Hicks has got a twist for it. He finally catches it, puts the glove down, and Turner slides in safely with the fourth run. Now, it was costly for the Phillies because Turner had to leave the game, and today they put Turner on the injured list, of the 10-day injured list, with a sore hamstring. It's early in the season. They're not going to fool around with him. But my point with Murphy was, Bailey is out of the game. He's got blurred vision. Murphy's put in the game. They don't really have the emergency catcher at AAA. I don't know if Blake Sable will be up there today or not, or what Murphy's situation is. Obviously, he would be here. I don't know what Bailey's situation will be. But that's the problem for the Giants. You've got a plan. Where's Trump when you need him? Joey Bart, unfortunately, is in Pittsburgh, but he's hitting 200 there. I don't think he's the answer anyway. So that's what happened last night. So all of a sudden now it's 4-2, a crazy play. It probably was close to strike three, but Murphy boxed the ball so much he couldn't get the call on it. And that's what happened. That was the fourth run. Giants came back, and they get runners on base. They just can't get that big hit. And it's Chapman and Soler and Conforto. It's the middle of the order. They just can't get it going. And then you get the tying run on base in the ninth inning and 2 out. And all of a sudden here comes Flores to face 100 from Jose Alvarado. And he strikes out, and that's the end of the game. I don't know what they're going to do with Flores. Carrie and I will probably talk about that today, maybe Bruce as well, and Evan Webeck's going to join us. I don't know what you're going to do with him. Wilmer Flores is a very, very good hitter, but he'll play today because Ranger Suarez, the lefty, is going today, and he'll play Monday when Sanchez goes, the lefty for the Phillies, on Monday. But otherwise, where are you going to put him? Wade, you can't take Wade out against right-handed pitching. He's the only guy who's really hitting. Jung-Ho Lee, who made one of the top 50 catches probably in franchise history last night, getting a ball in center field off the batter Rojas. Just an amazing play. If you didn't see it, you want to absolutely take a look at it. So you get Lee and Wade at the top of the order. You're not going to take Wade out for Flores against a righty. Not going to do it. And you can't really sit Chapman. But maybe you have to sit Chapman and give him a rest here and there and get Flores' bat into the lineup, because by using Flores just sparingly, he's not ready. He's just not ready. And you can see that because he's still one of the best hitters. So they got a dilemma on what they're going to do with Wilmer Flores there. So they end up losing at 4-3. Soler, bases loaded, and, hits into a double play, gets the run in. And Andy Bagley did some tweet this week of, Soler had 90 runners on base and 87 of them got stranded or something like that. He's just not connecting. He's a good hitter. He doesn't chase that much. He's just not squaring it up. And you just have to just be patient with him, and that's the story. The right field situation, I know everyone's yelling and screaming about Elliot Ramos. Bring him up. When Elliot Ramos hits 350 at AAA, then I'll say bring him up. Slater's another one. You got to get him in the lineup. He'll be in there today. He'll be in there Monday. But he's got like 25 at-bats the whole year. Play him. And I don't care if you got to sit Yastrzemski down once in a while and play Slater with his speed. And the other one, I'll finish it up here since I'm on a little bit of a roll right now, is Fitzgerald. Nick Ahmed is terrific. He does everything he can at short, but he's 34. He's coming off the shoulder injury. Don't run the guy in the ground. You're having trouble scoring runs. Fitzgerald can steal a base. He's quick. He hit a home run last weekend. Play the guy. Play him. It's okay. You can give Ahmed a rest and get Fitzgerald into the game. And I think that's another thing that they can do. So they got to do something to get this offense going. They do. Conforto is doing everything he can, but it's Soler, Conforto, and Chapman in that middle, and not much is happening there. Probably Estrada could be moved up in the lineup as well. Even though he's hitting about 230, he still gives you a pretty tough at bat. All right, so today, the Giants turn to Keaton Winn. He's pitched great all year long. The numbers for Keaton Winn that jump out at me, the second and third time through the lineup, 10 for 66 against him. He's strong. Lefty 6 for 54. 6 for 54 lefties against him. So that's should be able to handle Schwarber today. Hopefully he can do a good job with Schwarber and Harper. And we'll see how that works out today. Ranger Suarez is a lefty. He goes for the Phillies today. One of the best pitchers in baseball this year. He's from Venezuela, 28 years old, 5-0, 132 earned run average. I'll just give you the number: 41 innings, 21 hits, 5 walks, and 40 strikeouts. Okay, that's enough. So this has the makings of another one of those very good games. The bullpens were great yesterday. Both bullpens were terrific yesterday. How about Sean Jelly and what he did yesterday? Very good. All right, we got so much to go and talk about. It's baseball. It's the weekend. And then it's Colorado coming home next Friday for the Reds and the Dodgers. It's a good time of year. It's May. Got 129 games to go. So much can happen, and the Giants are right in the mishmash of all those teams in the middle. So things can change very quickly. All right, more coming up. Evan Webeck, who covers the Giants for the San Jose Mercury News, will be back with us right after this. KNBR 680, 104.5, the sports leader. Fans, it's great to have you back with us as we're joined by Grant Power. He is the president and CEO of Nations. Grant, I love to talk about the menu at Nations, especially this time of year. What's going on?
Well, just as spring brings real baseball games, spring brings the strawberry season at Nations. And we do not believe in frozen strawberries, so we only have them during the spring, summer, and early fall months when we can get them fresh from Southern California. That time's arrived, and so strawberry tart, strawberry cheesecake becomes our best-selling pie during this time of year. Strawberry pancakes, strawberry French toast.
How about breakfast at Nations? We talk about that a lot.
For 27 of our locations, any time of day, I love getting breakfast at night. We can mix and match, sub, if you don't want the hash browns and toast, we'll throw in the French toast or the pancakes. Your choice of meat with the breakfast, again, the wild salmon goes wonderful with the eggs, but we got the bacon, sausage, linguiça, you name it. You can't really experience the Nations dining experience if you haven't tried the breakfast at least once.
I love talking about Nations. Grant, great to have you with us. Have a good day. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Marty.
It's Marty Lurie with an update from River Islands and Lathrop, Northern California's best-selling master plan community. I can't believe it, but it's been 10 years since River Islands first opened. In that time, more than 4,000 homes have been sold, mostly to people choosing to move from the core Bay Area to a more relaxed lifestyle, I love it, along the San Joaquin River. This is the kind of place where you see neighbors launching their kayaks from their own docks, fishing along the San Joaquin River, and watching baseball at Islanders Field. Their kids, they go to one of the 3 new charter schools, and the brand new River Islands High School will open its campus in the fall. Best of all, there are new models being built right now for grand openings in the months to come. The homes represent all the latest in smart home technology and great design. Homes range in size from 3 to 6 bedrooms, and prices start in the low $600,000s to over $1 million. Isn't it time for you to discover the islands? It sure was for me. Start your tour now at riverislands.com. All right, good pitching matchup today. Keaton Winn and Rangers Suarez today for the Phillies as we get to Game 2 of this 4-game series and go out to Philly and bring in Evan Webeck, who covers the Giants for the San Jose Mercury News. Ev, good morning. How are you?
Always good to hear your voice, Marty. A little drizzly here in Philly, but it's a nice day nonetheless.
All right. You like Philly? How do you like this stop on the tour, so to speak?
Man, I love Philly. We could spend this whole interview talking about Philly, Marty. It's where I spent my first summer out of college covering the Phillies in 2016, and didn't really know much about the city, but just completely fell in love with the food, the music, the culture, the people, the sports. It's fantastic. Tons of history. If you ever get the chance, it's a great road trip to come out and see the Giants. And Citizens Bank Ballpark is it's a modern gem too. Not quite on Oracle's level, but beautiful view of the skyline and behind center field. It's a great place to watch a ball game.
How do you like the cheesesteaks?
I had one with brisket, smoked brisket today.
Wow.
That was new for me. But yeah, I'm a big cheesesteak guy, Marty.
Very good. All right, Ev. I love having you on and love talking ball with you. Boy, last night was a tough one for the Giants. First of all, a couple of injury issues. One, I see the Phillies have put Trey Turner on the IL with the sore hamstring. And the other one, if you have an update for us on Patrick Bailey, that would be great as well.
Yeah, I think we'll know more about Patty when we get to the clubhouse today here in about, an hour or two. The Giants were still kind of evaluating him last night. He had been seen by doctors, and he was not in concussion protocol. So I think that was a positive sign. However, it is something he has dealt with in the past, these concussions. Obviously, we all know he missed time last year when he went on the concussion IL, and I believe, he's had some issues with it in the past, even before getting to the big leagues. And, obviously he wears this kind of headband-looking thing around his neck, right, which is supposed to be a tool that to prevent these concussions. So he's taking proactive measures. However, it seems, and we obviously don't know if he sustained one last night. But as a catcher, it's kind of a reality of the position. And we talked to Tom Murphy after the game last night, and he said, yeah, it's terrifying when that happens, right? I mean, we see the kind of the head injuries in the NFL, really especially, right, and kind of the long-lasting effects, the CTE down the road, and catchers are obviously the most susceptible to those kind of injuries in baseball, and probably, I mean, we talk about arms and legs and tendons and ligaments, the brain, that's a serious thing to consider. So it is pretty scary. We're hoping that he's okay, and it's very important, just talking about baseball, a very important piece to the Giants, right? To say nothing of the defense and handling of the pitching staff. He's been arguably the most consistent and productive bat this season too.
Well, this team in the last 8 games they've only scored 19 runs. What can they do in the short run here? Look, this is 33 games out of 162. We know there's a whole season still ahead of us. But can you do anything? Can Bob Melvin, can Farhan do something in the short run here?
It's a tough question, right, Marty? Because, you look at, I mean, when you're watching the game, you're seeing these balls get hit pretty hard. You're seeing runners get on base, and they're just not scoring the runs, right? I talked to Pat Burrell yesterday. He's back in Philadelphia, obviously a very meaningful place for him. They showed him on the big screen, and really didn't even get a wave. He spit his seeds out and turned away from the camera when they put him on the big screen to recognize him yesterday. So that was kind of a big league move by Pat Burrell. But he's been working hard, and he's killing himself over this, right? And just trying to find answers. I think one thing that they've identified is maybe they're not being quite aggressive enough on some of these early count, strikes that they're getting. That are, if you get, an 0-0 fastball over the middle of the plate, it's often the best pitch you're going to get. And they hadn't really been swinging at them. In fact, they had, at least as of a couple days ago, had swung at the fewest first pitch fastballs of any team in baseball, and I think that's something that they're hoping to change. However, one thing Burrell did say is that you have to balance that with what hitters are comfortable with. And when you look at guys, take Lamont Wade Jr. for example, right? This guy last season he saw the most pitches per at bat in baseball, and that's generally regarded as a strength, right? A guy who gets on base, he allows other hitters behind him to see what the pitcher's working with that day. But, last night, right, Lamont Wade in his first at-bat swings first pitch, lines a single into right field. And you saw it on Thairo Estrada's at-bat, too. He got a first pitch cutter, went the other way with it, and took it to the right field wall. And that was the 2 RBI double that gave the Giants, their only 2 runs until late in the game. So, I think they're making adjustments. They're working with it. But, it's funny, I was chatting with Michael Conforto before the game yesterday, too, about kind of these same issues. And, just talking about what happened at Fenway just the day before with Jung-Hoo Lee, right? He climbs crushed 3 balls off his bat, especially that one in the first inning. Goes 400 feet, comes off the bat at like 103 miles an hour, and it lands in the center fielder's glove. And that's just kind of been the story of the Giants' offense. And lo and behold, almost the exact same thing happens to Conforto last night, right? He sends that ball to the right field wall. And, I mean, I've seen a lot of games here at Citizens Bank Park. I have never seen a ball that looked like that off the bat and not leave the park. It was obviously chilly and pretty windy last night, so that sucked the air out of the ball. But man, you come to Citizens Bank Park, a total bandbox, looking to ignite the offense, and you're greeted by this kind of weather where it's not really conducive to offense. So just got tough sledding, and they just need to wake up and hope they can find some momentum, I think.
Well, Soler has been an issue. Let's face it, the middle of the order. He comes up with the bases loaded and gets the run in, but unfortunately at the price of a double play, which essentially shuts down the inning at that point. And Conforto isn't really catching up with the fastball right now, and Chapman has really struggled with the fastball. I'm not sure there's much you can do in the middle of the order other than let them try to work their way out of it.
And that's pretty much what Bob Melvin has said too. And he's a guy who has a history of really sticking with his guys, and we've seen that throughout the first months of this season, right? All these guys in the order, most of them have long track records of pretty strong offensive success, and like we were talking about, the underlying numbers here when they do make contact are pretty solid. They're making hard contact, they're walking at a decent rate, they're not striking out a ton. So I think it's as frustrating as it is to watch. It's kind of just a wait and see game. But yeah, Soler, man. I mean, for a guy you bring in as your designated hitter to be, the middle of your order bat, you look at just on the other side of the field, right, and you see the impact that some big free agent signings can have. And that was kind of the hope for Soler coming in. And he's come to the plate 26 times, or 26 at-bats. I think he's come to the plate with a few walks. But with runners in scoring position, 26 at-bats, 3 hits. He has 8 RBIs on 8 RBIs on the season, and 5 of those have been himself on home runs. So just not the run producer that the Giants thought they were paying for so far.
Hard to believe. I thought Hicks, he's been terrific. We loved him in Arizona. He's strong, but he is a work in progress as a starting pitcher. And he got in trouble last night. They had to come out and calm him down, and then he threw the ball a little bit differently after that. The starting pitching is still solid, but when you don't score runs, you put pressure on the starters. And you got the kid today, Keaton Wynn, who's pitched great. If you don't give him some runs to work with, it's trouble because he can't make a mistake. That's not a good way to live.
No, and Keaton especially, he was kind of getting the Logan Webb treatment for the first couple starts of this season. He had the least run support of any starter in the majors for a little while there. But yeah, I mean, I think it kind of speaks to the strength of their pitching so far. The fact that over these last 8 games, they've actually won 3 of them. Well, I mean, they haven't scored more than 3 runs in any of them, which is pretty remarkable. And I haven't done the research yet. I need to go back and look and see when the last time they've gone this long without scoring 3 runs, because it seems like it's kind of a tough thing for a team to do. You know, you eventually get to 4, right? You know, it just happens in baseball.
You should, yes.
But yeah, it's tough to pitch in such tight margins. But you know, I think Hicks, you know, he's had some command issues now. Going back, you know, he looked pretty good against the Pirates, but now 3 of his last 4 starts, you know, he's walked at least 3 batters. You know, he made his first 3 starts walking 3 batters total, and that was, you know, a huge part of his success and kind of a big change and improvement from his time as a reliever and his time, you know, his initial, you know, time in the rotation with St. Louis that didn't go well was, you know, his command issues, and it was kind of tough to corral. You know, it was just incredibly nasty arsenal. So, you know, I don't think it's gotten to that at that point yet. And, you know, both he and Bob thought he was getting squeezed a little bit last night. But yeah, you know, I think, I mean, personally, I think the biggest issue with Hicks last night was what happened with Trey Turner in the 4th inning. You know, you get the delayed steal the second, and then the fastball, and Hicks doesn't cover home plate until it's too late. And, you know, personally, both Melvin and Hicks thought that he got to the plate in time, you know, by the time Turner got there, which, you know, is probably true. But I was watching that play, and when Turner got to third, he looked at the mound, he saw Jordan Hicks on the mound, and he calculated in his head, I can beat that guy to the plate, and that's why he took off. So really, I mean, it was a poor throw by Tom Murphy, but that's a tough play at that point. And, you know, the fact that he was put in the position at all, it kind of falls on the pitcher's shoulders.
Yeah, I thought the throw was terrible, and a good throw, and he's out. And Murphy really had a tough time there. Our crack research department, RAF, says April 23rd was the last time they scored 4 runs in a game. So, RAF, thanks for looking that up. I brought this up on the Open today with Flores. You know, he's one of the best hitters they've got, and they can't get him in the lineup because they're not facing a lot of lefties, and you don't want to sit Wade down, and you don't want to sit Chapman down. But I think at some point you got to let Flores play.
Yeah, you know, you could make the argument that, you know, he is still providing a pretty valuable role even off the bench. You know, as a right-handed pinch hitter, especially with kind of the struggles that Austin Slater's been going through, to give you know, a little bit more reliable stat off the bench late in the games. But, you know, you're right, Marty. I mean, it's kind of the corner they backed themselves into with the roster construction, right? And it was even worse, you know, before, you know, they got rid of J.D. Davis, bringing in Chapman. You know, there was just a total backlog at the corner infield spots. But, you know, it's kind of the role Wilmer signed up for, and one that he's comfortable with and agreeable to. I mean, he's the guy who was kind of the reason why Jorge Soler signed with the Giants, right? You know, I think Wilmer would be probably close to the everyday DH if Soler wasn't here. But Wilmer was part of the recruiting pitch and convinced him to come to San Francisco, which was you know, a pretty foreign destination for him. So you're right, and it's kind of the same story as last season, right, Marty, with Wilmer. You know, First month or two, I mean, he can't find his way into the lineup, and by the end of the season, you know, he's their best hitter. So, you know, who knows? It might be the same thing this year.
You got to play him somewhere, but with Chapman and Wade, there's not a lot of room to do anything. So that's the problem. We're going to see more Slater. I'll tell you that. He's going to play today. He'll play Monday. They've got probably Gomber in Colorado. And we may see Abbott with the Reds next weekend. At some point, he's got to do something. And the pressure is out there for Elliot Ramos. And I think there's a little pressure on Slater. He better do something this week, or his job could be in jeopardy by the end of next weekend.
You think it's that close, Marty, the end of next weekend?
Yeah, I think he's going to get 4 starts here. And he's gonna be in there, and yeah, I think at some point you got to play him, and even if you sit Yastrzemski down, you got to play more of him because you're not getting anything in that right field slot from the right side.
I do think that there's pressure on his job in particular with you know the guys they have in the outfield at the top level of the minor leagues. who are mostly performing this season. Luis Matos, too, obviously had a huge spring and doesn't have numbers that are popping off the page at AAA, but he's also really not striking out, and he's drawing a good amount of walks down there, too, which sometimes are the numbers that you pay more attention to in the Pacific Coast League. But, yeah, Elliot Ramos is on fire down there, and I think really making just a strong push for that kind of right-handed outfield slot off the bench. And, Slater's a guy, I mean, he's such an important figure in the organization. He's one of the longest tenured players in the clubhouse. He used to be, he was a long time, a player rep for the union within the clubhouse. That's Lamont Wade now. But still, a leadership figure and a guy who's been here for a long time that they really think highly of. And, even, off the field too, I think they see him bring value there. But, yeah, when you've got guys like Elliott and Luis Matos, knocking on the door at AAA, eventually, the performance has got to come, and both those guys are on the 40-man roster, so there's not a whole lot of obstacles other than Austin Slater's spot on the 26-man.
Yeah, I think it's a big week for him. Evan Webeck with us as we wrap it up with Ev. You got to see a cool moment on Thursday at Fenway with Mike Yastrzemski hitting the home run. I think anytime Yastrzemski hits a home run at Fenway, it's monumental.
Yeah, for me personally, the cooler moment was before the game when we were in the clubhouse and we saw Carly Yastrzemski, come through, and really of the incredibly brief visit. Mike joked afterward that he left the car running. It was really like 15 minutes. He was in and he was out. He went into the clubhouse manager's office and sat down with Mike and a couple. It looked like maybe team employees that he had a prior relationship with, and then Mike brought him in and talked with Bob for a few minutes. Which Bob, he's a guy who's been around the game for his entire life, and he's he can consider just about anybody at any level a peer. But in this case, he said he was pretty speechless when he saw Carl Yastrzemski, 18-time All-Star, first ballot Hall of Famer, 3,000 hit club, and just to see the homer later that day. I mean, talk about a storybook moment, right? Yaz actually said, this one wasn't necessarily as cool as the first one. It kind of felt more like a normal home run, but obviously still special with family in the stands and all that. But for him, the cooler moment actually was when he got lifted for Austin Slater in the seventh inning, and that ended his responsibilities for the day. And for the first time, he was able to just kind of sit down and soak it in. And he's like, wow, he's scanning the ballpark. He's like, I've sat there. And so I think that was kind of the cooler, more sentimental moment for Yaz, not a person.
No, I'm glad you could be part of it. Hey, how'd you like Jelly last night?
Looked good, man. Looked real good.
He's fabulous. That's the best he's ever looked.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what he can do. We saw some flashes of that last season. He came up with, the added velocity and a little bit more swing and miss. But, they need arms out of the bullpen, man. They definitely need some help out there. So
what are they going to do Monday? What's going to happen Monday?
Yeah, good question. I think Mason Black has made a great case for himself at AAA, but the 40-man question is it's tough. If you're only going to bring out Black for, one or two starts and you have to add him to the 40, you have to create a space for him on the 40. And, that might most likely be Dalton Jeffrey's spot. And then you have to also consider the fact that Alex Cobb and Tristan Beck are going to be back in the next, month or two, and then Robbie Ray down the road. And all three of those guys are coming off the 60. You got to create more 40-man spots. So it's kind of tough to find a spot for Black to get him onto the active roster, despite, I think he's not allowed to run in 4 of his 5 outings at AAA after making a pretty good case for himself in Major League Camp in the spring.
Yeah.
So it's a good question, Mark. I wouldn't be surprised to see a bullpen game if they've got, if they can get some length out of Keaton tonight. And
they got Webb tomorrow. Yeah.
And Webb tomorrow, right. So, a very, very, very well could be a bullpen game, but they are in a tough stretch of, I think it's 16 straight games. So kind of tough to find, the arms out there to cover all that. But that spot through the rotation has been very troubling, for them all season.
Hey, man.
They thought they were
bringing in Blake. They need Snell big time. They need Blake Snell.
0-6 in his time through the rotation.
They need
outscored
people.
5-12. It's been disastrous.
Yeah, people should remember that. They need Blake Snell big time, and when he comes back, he better be Blake Snell, and that's going to be a big difference. Hey, Ev, always a pleasure. Great to talk to you. Enjoy Philly. I'm glad you're there, and I'll see you next weekend.
Anytime, Marty. Thank you.
All right, that is Evan Webeck. Does a nice job on the San Jose Mercury News. Mark Simon, Mark A. Simon says on Twitter, Sports Info Solutions. Mark Simon next, right here on the Sports Leader. Experience the epitome of luxury and craftsmanship with Inicio Windows and Doors, another exciting product line from BMD Manufacturing. Inicio Windows and Doors sets the standard in ultra-premium European design. Wow. For the most demanding American building standards. Available both in steel and aluminum, they are meticulously engineered to elevate your living space to new heights of sophistication. Learn more about Inicio Windows and Doors today. Discover the perfect blend of European beauty and style with unwavering durability and strength. Visit InicioWindows.com. INICIO Windows.com. Inicio Windows and Doors, where European design meets American craftsmanship.
Mark Simon. Mark, I love you, man.
We love him. It is Mark Simon, Sports Info Solutions, and he has a great introduction. And John Miller, we always enjoy hearing John's voice as well. Mark, how are you today? Nice to have you on the show.
Thanks. Breaking news. I see that Trey Turner was put on the IL, and the manager said 6 weeks potentially for his absence.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that long. I know they brought up, is it Roger Clemens' kid they brought up?
I don't have that in front of me, but I was just reading Alex Coffey on Twitter, and that was the news that she shared was that Trey Turner, 6 weeks. Yes, Cody Clemens recalled. That's the other component of it.
Wow. All right. Let's talk about that play just for a second. No one slides smoother than Trey Turner. Isn't it amazing the way this guy, it's like he's on ice when he slides.
Yeah. I guess that's the unfortunateness of this whole thing, that happens. And he's been so good since he got the standing O last year. He's been one of the best players in the National League, one of the best players in baseball. And that's a very significant loss when we talk NL East, when we talk wild card. He's a terrific player. He's so good at so many different things. He's one of the more impressive players in the sport.
Well, the NL East has been a lot of fun. You and I know we always like to talk about different things, but the Mets, boy, Quintana got torched last night. He got lit up by Tampa Bay of all teams, and then you get Atlanta and the Dodgers going at it, and the Phillies and the Giants. And look at who's the big surprise, Washington. Come on, they're playing 500 ball and they're beating people.
Yeah, go figure on that. I don't necessarily have a good explanation for them being 16 and 16 to this point. I will point out that I think I did call out Trey Lipscomb a few weeks ago when the Giants were playing the Nats, and he hasn't been great, but he's been decent. He's a pretty good glove at third base, but it looks like C.J. Abrams is carrying them a bit. Jacob Young, center fielder. Not particularly familiar with him. I think a lot of people would say they're not particularly familiar with most of this Nationals roster. But, yeah, hanging in at 16 and 16 so far. And then there's the Marlins, who just traded Louis Rise.
Yeah, boy, that's an interesting one. A batting champion getting traded to the Padres for 3 or 4 young players and all that. So a lot going on in baseball. It's only May the 4th. We got another 129 games to go, but still a lot of things starting to happen, which is fun. Well, the Phillies and Giants today. Here we go. It's Keaton Winn. I think you and I talked about him last time. He's been fabulous. He's a tough kid. They got to get him some runs, but the guy on the other side, this Ranger Suarez, where did all this come from? Because he's right now probably the best pitcher in baseball.
So it's actually got foreshadowed in spring training. In spring training, Ranger Suarez threw 15 innings and allowed no runs and 5 hits. So if you combine that with what he's done in the regular season, it's all just a carryover. I will point out that the defense has been good behind him. The defense has been good behind a couple of Philly pitchers this year, which is a little something new for them, at least newer. No team is better at turning ground balls into outs for their pitchers than the Phillies for Ranger Suarez and Taijuan Walker, who are the pitchers the next 2 days. And Ranger Suarez this year, for whatever reason, is getting a ton of ground balls. There's nothing different about his velo. There's nothing particularly different about his location. But right-handed hitters are having much more trouble against him than they typically do. And, his last start, he had a couple of good pitches working. Fastballs, they were hitless against it. Padres were also hitless against the curveball. He's been terrific. Keaton Winn, Mr. Splitter, thrown the most splitters in baseball this year. Him and Cal Quantrill, it's been great. You just have to hope that when the ball's hit, it's not hit particularly hard, because he's given up some pretty hard contact this year. But fortunately for him, I suppose a lot of it on the ground. And looking pretty good. Last 3 starts in particular, I think he's been I actually, when I wrote out the notes today for John and Dave and the guys, I wrote out Keaton Webb by accident, and I had to fix that. That's how good he's been. It reminds me of Logan Webb.
Well, lefties, and I talked about this last week, 6 for 54 against Keaton Winn. And, the Phillies, that's huge because you got to deal with Schwarber and Harper and Stott, even Stott. So for me, that's a key for me with him. And then, as you point out, the righties against Suarez, 17 for 109, and I'm sure we'll see Flores in there and Slater today.
Yeah, you have to, because they should be. I don't think this isn't a guy that you would put many lefties in against, I don't think.
Well, the bullpens last night, it was interesting because both these teams are great in quality starts, and both bullpens were lights out last night. And Nola, I've never seen Nola so wild. And, of course, Hicks got in trouble with the Chapman errors, so that was last night. What about Patrick Bailey being out of the game last night? I always say Tom Murphy is like a rusty player. You know, he needs to get his feet on the ground. He had a really rough couple of innings there when he had to come in for Bailey. What does Bailey mean to this team, Mark?
So look at the difference between when one guy catches and when the other guy catches. And admittedly, some of it's a little unfair because Bailey's going to catch Logan Webb. But even if you look at the guys that they've both caught a decent amount and Logan and Keaton Winn is one of those guys. So the staff ERA with Bailey catching this year is 3.4. The staff ERA with Murphy catching this year is 6.6.
Wow.
The strikeouts to walks is 3-1 for Bailey, about 2-1 for Murphy. OPS difference 85 points or so. Win with Bailey 3 starts, 2.12 ERA. Win with Murphy 3 starts, 4.24 ERA, twice the ERA. So really big difference. And to be frank, if it's Blake Sable's not. It's not necessarily any better. Strikeout to walk should be all right. He's not Patrick Bailey behind the plate. Having a Patrick Bailey is a luxury. And I guess it hasn't been announced yet, but you got to hope that thing's not too bad.
Yeah, Murphy had it. Well, not to belabor the point on him, but he had a tough night last night, and the throw to the plate was high and wide, and it put Hicks at risk, who made a heck of a play on the tag, and he almost got him. But, yeah, Murphy had trouble last night. So, all right, we'll see where that goes. You know, here we go with the Giants against left-handed pitching. They don't see lefties that often. I think there was some stat this morning, 29% at-bats against lefties. So they do get to face a lefty today. Do they do anything against left-handed pitching?
Not this year. There's a couple of guys that have been decent. But if you look at the team in sum, hasn't been particularly good against left-handers. I think I've got it in front of me here. They're right-handed hitters against left-handed pitching. Righties against lefties are 20% below league average. So they're going to be near the bottom, 640-ish OPS. Conforto's actually been decent because he's the lefty that you would start against lefties. They're not going to necessarily start Lamont. But Conforto's been decent so far. The guy that's really struggled for whatever reason, and I feel like it's somewhat inexplicable, is Tyro. Tyro Estrada's 2 for 27 against left-handed pitching this year. Austin Slater's 3 for 28. You're going to keep throwing those guys out there. They got to do something eventually. But they've had it very rough against left-handed pitching this year.
Well, I was looking at it today. Against Suarez, Estrada's 2 for 4. Flores is 5 for 10. Soler's 3 for 9 with a couple of home runs, and then you get Wade and Yaz, who probably won't be in there today. But at least it looks like they've hit Suarez a little bit in the past.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing that you can hope at this point, because he's also the other thing that I point out about Suarez is he's rolling, and one of the things that he's really good at is fielding his position. He's not going to allow a lot of stolen bases, and he catches anything. Him and Walker both tomorrow, you'll see it too. Are both very good on the mound. And one of the reasons that the ground balls, they've been so good on ground balls, is because if the ball's there for that guy to field, Suarez or Walker, pitcher, they're going to field it. They're not going to let it go through and go into center field for a hit. They're going to stop it and cut it off. And that's something to keep in mind, too.
I had a friend who texted me this week. He said, I'm going to make a bet every day that the Giants don't score first. And see for the whole season, see how that turns out. And I started thinking about it. They don't score very much early in the game, do they?
No, it's really bad. Like first inning, they're 29th in first inning runs, so next to last in the whole sport. They're up to 18th in the second inning. 18th sounds good. They got 2 yesterday to push them up a bit. they were further below. But their OPS in the second inning is like, it's not quite pitcher level, but it's below 600. Yeah, I don't have an explanation for that. I don't have an explanation for the thing that Andrew Baggerly wrote about the number 3 hitter and how the number 3 hitter is doing absolutely nothing. It's a lot of things that I think in the end they don't have enough hitters. Chapman and Soler are good additions, but they're not the additions that the superstar kind of player would have done if they had been able to land one of those.
Right. Yeah, that's the issue. They're not going to lead the league in hitting. Yeah, that's the problem. Looking at Jung-Ho Lee, John Shea wrote a good story today in the Chronicle about Lee. Number one, the catch last night, I said, was probably in the top 50 in franchise history to run that ball down in center field. That's how good that was. But he's hitting the ball hard. He said he's crushing the ball. He's just hitting it at people, and that's part of it. You know, he hustled a single and set the Soler double play up, that inning. He makes things happen. It's just the ball's not falling for him.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. You like the hard hit rate. He hasn't had more than one hit in a game since April 20th, so that's like 2 weeks. He's now in this 2-week slump where he's at $158, but at least he's still drawing walks. He is hitting the ball. I don't know. I think it's tough to have a batting average on balls in play of 400. It's tough to have one of 167, which is what he is in these last 11. Wow. So I would think he'll be a little better in the near future. Although I offered no guarantees of that.
What do you think of the catch?
The catch was very impressive. I was watching it again this morning on MLB Network, and we don't do out probability until the next day. Like we have a day in between, so I don't know what the out probability was by our measures, but that looked like a very difficult catch. I will defer to you on top 50 in franchise history. Yep. You would hope. So I think what's interesting is that you would say that about a catch that wasn't involving a slide or a dive or anything like that.
No, that ball was hit, and there was a great camera angle, and it looked you saw it, and I said, there's no way he's going to catch up to that ball. I'm not going to equate it to Mays' catch, but if you watch the Mays catch, if you watch it from home plate, when Vic Wirtz hit the ball, it's crushed over Mays' head. I mean, it's a great angle to see how hard that ball was hit. And this one sort of looked like that. It was hit so hard that he had to run it down. I love right field play. Castellanos is not a very good right fielder. I don't know how they put up with him. But your guy this week, Starling Marte, made 2 great throws to the plate to save the game for the Mets this week. What do you think of those throws?
He does, and that's always been his forte. When he was in left field, he basically was his defensive runs saved were really pumped up because his arm was either going to throw guys out or was just a strong deterrent on guys advancing. So it was a nice blast from the past for him. He's had certainly his share of decent moments this year where he looks a lot healthier than he had been last year. He's still old, but he's definitely one of the people who's been propping the team up in the early part of the season.
Yeah, I've always liked Starling Marte as a player. I've always thought he's a winner. Even when he was with the Pirates, he used to kill the Giants when he was with the Pirates. I remember that. The Giants, after this series, and it's a tough series for them, it really is. The Phillies are good. And the Giants are not hitting right now, even though they're getting the decent pitching. It's the Rockies next. The Rockies do win at home occasionally, and they actually won. Cal Quantrill, the Giants will probably see him next week, too. Pitched great against the Pirates, who can't hit at all. But the Rockies do win at home occasionally. Can you tell us anything about the Rockies?
Sure. Well, Cal Quantrill's got a great splitter, kind of similar to Keaton Wynn, one of the better splitters in the sport right now. Ryan McMahon is hitting like he's the one guy that they've got that's really hitting like a guy that you would expect a guy in Colorado to hit. Brenton Doyle, their center fielder, has had a little bit of a rougher go of it in the field this year. If you remember last year, he was very much a guy who would catch everything. He won a Gold Glove. So his defense has been down, but he's hitting almost 300, which I suppose is encouraging for him. Charlie Blackmon these days is a non-factor offensively. Brendan Rodgers is a non-factor offensively. They're a good defensive team with Tovar, Rodgers, McMahon on the infield, Nolan Jones when he's healthy, Brenton Doyle in center. Bryant's on the IL. He was hitting $150 when he went down. That's what I got on Colorado. They're not particularly impressive, as we know.
No, I remember Doyle. He has the great arm, doesn't he? Didn't he?
He does. He throws like 95 to 100 miles an hour from center field. Yep.
Yeah. Ellie Dela Cruz comes in next week, and he threw a ball in the infield 107 miles an hour, they said.
So that wasn't true.
That's not true?
They put a thing out. Every so often what happens with MLB's data is like something hybrid kind of happens, and it just takes over for a second, and it spits out something like that. You'll occasionally see, if the people that have access to it will occasionally see like a 520-foot home run. This was the case. No one's throwing 107 miles an hour. So I don't know what the number was, but Mike Petriello put out a thing that said, no, it was not 107 miles an hour.
Okay.
The Ellie De La Cruz thing, it's basically him against the world. Like, you take his wins above replacement for the Reds position players. He's at like 2 or 2 and change or whatever his number is. The rest of the team is basically replacements. So it's basically him and like 8 minor leaguers trying to win games with a pitching staff that's been pretty decent, particularly their starting pitching. Hunter Green's off to a really good start this year.
Yeah, we get to see them next weekend. All right, Mark, always a pleasure to talk with you, and look forward to talking to you next weekend. The Reds will be in town, and we'll get to see Ellie De La Cruz and his 107-mile-an-hour fastball. We'll see that.
You got it.
All right, be well. Thanks, Mark. All right, that is Mark Simon. Mark A. Simon says on Twitter, and, of course, Sports Info Solutions. More coming up. Bruce Jenkins next, right here on the Sports Leader.
It sound right, boys. Sound right, boys.
Fans, I want to welcome Rick Robin Construction to the family this year, and Rick is an expert in the home construction, remodeling of kitchen and baths in Napa and Sonoma. And Rick, what really impressed me getting to know you, the way you approach your business. Now, let's say I'm a guy who says, I want my kitchen remodeled. What do you do?
Well, the first thing you do is you'll call, you'll speak to Tammy, I'll make an appointment. Say we're going to do a kitchen. We'll decide what kind of kitchen you want. And if you like the estimate, I'll come back out, take detailed measurements, and then I'll take you down to our 30,000 square foot showroom and meet our designer. So you'll pick out all your cabinets, stone, your sinks, faucets, your flooring. Once all the material's in the warehouse, we'll pick it up, deliver it, start construction.
Boy, I love it. Beginning to end, Rick Robin Construction takes care of it. Rick, it's a great way to do business. Fans, if you want to get in touch with Rick, it's Rick Robin, RICKROBBEN, ConstructionNapa.com. Rick, how about a phone number if folks want to call you?
Yeah, call us at 707-332-7575, 7 days a week.
Rick Robin Construction in Napa. Hey fans, Gene Bugano checked in from Bodega Bay and he reports that the nice spring weather continues to provide the setting for a great visit to the Sonoma coast. Down at the Tides Wharf, the friendly and knowledgeable staff takes great pride in offering only the best seafood available, both for your enjoyment in the restaurant, and don't forget you can purchase in the fish market and take it home. And if you're looking for a little retreat just across Highway 1, the Inn at the Tides with its large, comfortable rooms, all with bay views, is there waiting for you. Gene also wanted me to let everyone know that next week on May 4th and 5th, the annual Fisherman's Festival will be taking place, which is always a lot of fun for everyone. So if you're looking to escape just for the day, or maybe a night or two, remember the Tides Wharf and the Inn at the Tides in scenic Bodega Bay.
Look through the window of the original Joe's on North Beach and you'll see two guys at the counter talking ball. Time for you to listen in to their conversation. Marty Laurie and the SF Chronicles' Bruce Jenkins are looking through the window of baseball. Sponsored by Original Joe's of North Beach and Westlake on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
All right, great to have you back with us on this Saturday. I love doing the live stream. It's a lot of fun to do it, and we welcome in Bruce Jenkins. Bruce, good morning, good afternoon. How are you?
Good, Marty. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's interesting. This is new for me, doing the live streaming. And usually I talk and I'm just looking at a screen or something, just a blank. I'm looking at myself and I'm arguing with myself. Yeah. When Evan Webeck was on, I was talking about Blake Snell, and he was talking, and I wanted to say, no, they need Blake Snell now. So I started arguing with myself on the screen. It was interesting.
I love you two guys. You're like brothers, really, the way that you go back and forth.
It's funny. It's funny. Well, what a game. Look, the Phillies are a good team. The Giants are just not hitting right now. They had a nice moment at Fenway with Yaz hitting the home run in front of Carl, but they're just not playing good ball right now.
No, it was good to see them play the Phillies tight. I mean, the Phillies are really good. I mean, if you're ahead of the Braves in your division, you're having a pretty good early season. And it was just tough. There were a lot of moments that they would rather not have repeated. Chapman had a really tough game with a couple errors and striking out, and the play that when the pass ball went through Murphy, right through him really, and then he scrambled back and made a throw home that was in time, but it was too wide, and Turner's going to go for it. This is a guy that stole 41 straight bases. And when he was caught, he was on third on a first and third that didn't work. Then again, I didn't think Hicks was terrible. He got out of a lot of jams. His stuff looked good. Jelly comes in out of nowhere, strikes out the side with sliders, and then 1, 2, 3 in the next inning. So a little bit of a mixed bag. And of course, Jung-Hoo Lee made one of the great catches, really, of several seasons. I mean, that was so difficult. And the Giants, the guys on the team were just astounded what a great catch that was.
Yeah, John Shea wrote the article today in the Chronicle about Lee and how hard he's hitting the ball. And Mark Simon just talked about it. He said his BABIP, of course, his batting average with balls put in play, which should be like 290 or 300, whatever, typical. His is like 160.
Yeah, it's mystifying, really. I mean, it's got to change. The good thing is, obviously, and a little bit like, Soler's hit a lot of balls that have been caught, but Lee has really struck the look of a guy who's going to hit 300, and he's a long way from that. But he's great. He knows when to go the opposite way. He knows when to muscle up and go take a launch angle swing and go deep with it. And he's just a real bright, smart hitter, a real shining light on the team, I think.
Yeah, he beat out the infield hit, which set up the inning. Soler hit into the double play, but Stott made the terrible mistake of looking to second first. And by the time he looked back, Lee was across the bag, and he hustles. So I like him. I like the way he's playing. I brought up the issue with Flores, but I want to bring up the Ahmed issue. Ahmed is terrific. He does everything he can at that age with the shoulder issue to play short, but Fitzgerald does have speed, and this is a team, Bruce, they don't score. They've scored, 19 runs in 8 games or something. Why not play this kid at short and see if he can't ignite something?
Well, yeah, I can see that. You have to make the plays. That's the first thing you have to do, and Ahmed does that. Fitzgerald has made some really nice plays. He's also looked a little shaky at other times. But you don't know until you try it. I mean, if you take Ahmed out, it's not like you're losing, Mookie Betts or Ellie De La Cruz at short. I mean, and they do need hitting. But Fitzgerald can hit. He can run. He can play anywhere. And I think if you stick him at one spot, he would just get better defensively. So, yeah, I'm all for that. I mean, I've always, advocated change for this team. Change what's been bringing them down. And I wouldn't say Ahmed is quite in that state, but they've got a young kid, and we need to see these young players eventually.
Yeah, and I think Slater, and I brought this up today, and I'll say it again. Slater for me this week, it's a big week for him. He's going to face Suarez today. He's going to face Sanchez on Monday. He's probably got Gomber in his future in Colorado, and he's probably going to get Abbott or something with the Reds. At some point, he's got to hit, and Ramos is kind of knocking on the door. Yeah,
that's Ramos is a funny guy. He always tears it up in the minors, and he comes up to the bigs and it just looks overmatched. Like no big league future until he does something up here, and of course he's going to get another chance because once again he's tearing it up. But Slater, you feel for the guy. He hasn't played very much, and they put him up there in a spot to hit for Yaz in Boston. Yaz, meanwhile, had homered earlier in the game. And Slater struck out. I just think, if Slater does start hitting, what are you really getting? A single to right? I mean, this is not a starting corner outfielder in the bigs, Marty.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. He goes that way, and he tries to go that way. It is a problem. There's no question. That middle of the order of Soler, Chapman. How about Chapman making 2 errors? That's so uncharacteristic. I can't even imagine how he could make 2 errors.
No, at any time, and they were pretty dramatic. I mean, a very wild throw, and then a pop-up that wasn't a cinch play, but it was for easy play for him. He had it right above his head, and it got out of his glove. Yeah, that was very bizarre. I don't think you'll see that again all season, but he had a rough night. It's just such a reminder that the game, it's basically a game of failure. If you can look at it that way, you're going to fail. There's going to be big moments of failure. And the great players snap out of it, and the next day it's like it never happened. So I'd like to see him get a couple hits and make a couple of those typically great plays.
Well, hanging around the press box for so many years like you have, they're 33 games down. There's 129 to go. There's a whole baseball season ahead. But you have to tell that to the audience. The fans have to understand that it does take time to go through a baseball season. It's just a different sport.
Well, yeah, it really is. I mean, we're starting to get to the point where we can evaluate the Giants at some level. But like you say, we don't know about Fitzgerald. We don't know about Ramos. We don't know if Luciano's even going to be up this year. Yaz and Slater have not been hitting. Although he has had is having a little revival right now. And what happens if Bailey's out for a while? Is that going to? You talk about in a long season. You know, this guy's getting beat up back there in a big way. He couldn't see a pitch at one point. He had to come out of the game because he had blurred vision, and you have to worry about any catcher who's having problems early in the season with his head. You know, that's a big deal. Did Sable come up today? Is he with him or?
Well, Evan Webeck was on, and he hadn't been to the clubhouse yet, so he didn't have an answer for us yet. But as Melvin said last night, he's at least not in the protocol. But if they need Sable, they're going to have to do an emergency flight to get him there in time. You know, Murphy is a rusty player. You know, he just hasn't played for a couple of years, and he's not the answer. They're going to have to get Chadwick Trump back or something like that again.
I saw his name. He's playing for somebody. Who's he playing
Isn't
for?
He the Braves? Is he with the Braves?
Yeah, he's with the Braves. He's tromping around that ballpark now.
Yeah,
but
they're going to need a defensive catcher.
Yeah, that's true. It's definitely not Murphy. That sequence last night was kind of an unfortunate reflection of what they got there. And he's when he hits the ball, I mean, in the spring training, he hit some mammoth shots against left-handed pitching. Going, wow, here's a backup catcher for you. And who needs Joey Bart? And the next thing you know, it's kind of reality sets in.
Yeah, it's the defense that's killing him right now. That's the problem. Well, we get to see Ellie De La Cruz next weekend. That'll be fun. And by the way, Mark Simon did clarify it. Baseball did say he threw a ball at 107 miles an hour, which would be, of course, a Walt Disney movie to do that. And they corrected it. He did not throw at 107 miles an hour, apparently.
Well, it was the hardest throw of that season, though, right? I mean, I don't know. I can't keep them all straight. Maybe the hardest throw ever from an infielder. But the interesting part about it was that he delayed his throw almost intentionally. He took a nice long time to wind up just to show off the arm, and it wasn't accurate. The guy reached base, but he's unbelievable. I think he's got 19 stolen bases now.
Yep, 19.
And he gets on first. You're looking at 2 steals right away, very possibly. I mean, if Bailey's in there, he's generally very, very accurate, but he's going to have to be dead on if this guy's running, if they even have a chance. One thing, Marty, that strikes me is that the art of holding runners on is being lost. You can only throw over twice, right? So if you give them your best pickoff move on the second and probably last toss, then you're kind of done. You can do it one more time, but if you don't get him, it's a balk. And you see more and more pitchers who just really are shrugging the whole thing off. The guys are getting enormous leads. They're getting great jumps. And for a guy like De La Cruz, I mean, if you throw over there twice and you don't get him, he's gone. You're done. He's at second base automatically. So then this is happening in different levels all around the bigs.
Well, baseball wanted that. They wanted the speed back in the game, and they've got it. The Reds have 56 stolen bases, but as a team, the Reds are hitting like 213. And he's got more stolen bases than 13 teams. So we get this. And look, the Reds are a decent pitching team. There's Hunter Green. You and I have talked about Hunter Green for a couple of years now. Bruce, he's starting to put it together. I think he's got 13 or 14 scoreless in a row now, and he's still throwing 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, he threw that great one-hit ball over 7 shutout innings against Texas, and then he came out yesterday against the Orioles, 5 2/3 shutout. And then the Orioles are about as good a team as you're going to find right now. Before the game got away from him, but Green was great. So yeah, everybody's known about him for years, really. I mean, he was a two-way player when he came out of high school, and looked like he might be able to do both. But he's got a great arm, and he's coming around. The Reds really need him because they're not, like you say, they're not hitting. I think they're going to hit more than they have been. They've got some pretty good sticks, but De La Cruz is the show. He is a show.
Yeah, he is. He's the whole team. It's him against the world, and it's amazing. What do you think of the Luis Ariz trade? And again, hey, the Padres try. They try. They do things. They actually make trades. And look, they gave up, a top prospect and a couple of other people, including Jung-Ho Lee's brother-in-law, apparently.
Right.
But they got Ariz to play second base.
Well, there's nothing can go wrong with that move. This guy's a great hitter. I mean, Tatis said this guy's probably the closest we have to Tony Gwynn in the game right now. He's a tremendous. He's a 300 hitter. He looked like he was going to be a 400 hitter last year. He may not play second base as they got Cronenworth and Bogarts has been playing there, but the DH possibilities are endless with that team. He'll be in the lineup somewhere. That's a hard-hitting team, Marty. They're way more dangerous lineup than the Giants. It's not even close. It's a good thing they don't pitch, or they'd be even closer in their second-place standing. But that was a heck of a move, and they didn't really give up anybody that you've really heard of.
No, just the 7th, 9th, and 13th prospect, including, and then the one kid, Dylan. But what I like about it is that they try.
Yeah.
They try to do stuff, and that's what I like about the Padres. You know, you got the Phillies, you got Atlanta. Look at Milwaukee. This William Contreras, if he walked in the room, I'm not sure I could pick him out, but he's maybe the best hitter in baseball right now for the Brewers.
It looks like he's going to be the catcher in the All-Star game. I mean, I don't know who would be.
His brother.
This guy, yeah, he's leading the way. Milwaukee's they're really solid. You know, they lose Craig Counsell, the manager, and it was kind of a drag, and Corbin Burns leaves, but they're still. You know, with Yelich and Adames, and they've got, the kid Churios in right field, a great-looking rookie. Hard-hitting lineup. They pitch well. They're smart. I think, did they beat the Cubs yesterday? I think they did.
Come on, Joe Ross, Tyson Ross's brother, pitched 6 great innings.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that's the race. And there's those two teams. That's kind of the race right now. So, yeah, fun team, and they don't go away. They're always going to be around, it seems like.
Yeah, there's a whole mishmash of teams with 17, 18 losses, and then you get the Cubs with 14, and then you get the Phillies, Atlanta, and the Dodgers, and that's kind of where it is. The Giants are in the middle of that, so my point to everyone is relax and just pitch, get Blake Snell back, and keep the bullpen going, and let's see where it goes. I think that's where we are on May the 4th, so to speak.
No doubt. The pitching's going to be the key. I'm not writing off Snell by any means. I'd like to think he'll come back right. Although once again, you have another layoff. How sharp's he going to be right away? But that's like you say, it's an awfully long season, and he's going to be in position to be himself at some point. I think Wynn and Suarez is a heck of a matchup they've got right now with the Phillies. Hicks has been good, Webb's good, and as we talk about their young pitching, if they can get one of those guys to come up, they're going to be in really good shape that way, and that's going to keep them in it.
Absolutely. May 4th, Willie Mays hits homer number 512, which is the National League record way back in 1966, and he goes past Mel Ott. And Willie's birthday is coming up Monday, so I thought that'd be a good one for today.
Yeah, back then, before Pujols and A-Rod and Tomey and everybody showed up on this list, 512 homers was a big deal. I mean, obviously right. Ruth was way ahead of everybody, but you had Ott at 511, Eddie Matthews hit 512. He wound up in the American League. And Ted Williams at 521 and Jimmy Fox, and those are big numbers that you had in your head. Now you can barely you got to get down the list to find them. But for Mays, he's trying to catch Mel Ott, and he hit number 511 in Houston. Then there was 10 days before he finally got the record. He was 3 for 23. He goes, I've been trying to hit the ball out and get this thing over with. I just got to get my swing back. I got to get back to playing baseball. And then he finally hit one at Candlestick off Claude Osteen, who hadn't won a home run in a long, long time. Typical Mays, he knew how to play that win and go deep, and not just for a double, but out of the park, homering to right field. And that was the way it went that day. And here's how different those times were, Marty. As I looked at that box score, in the top of the 9th inning, Cepeda came out at first base, and McCovey replaced him. So, I mean, it's not exactly Yaz and Slater.
I love it. Well, Willie, happy birthday Monday.
Yeah.
We love him. All right, Bruce, talk to you tomorrow. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Marty. Talk then.
All right, be well. All right, more coming up. Gordon Wittenmyer is going to join us, covers the Reds. We talked a lot about the Reds for the Cincinnati Enquirer. We'll talk to him. Sarah Sanchez will be with us talking Cub ball. and we got more coming up on the Sports Leader. Fans, when I came up for FanFest, I had a great time, and the reason why, I stayed at the most unique hotel in San Francisco, and that is the Hotel Via, located directly across the street from Oracle Park. It's just a walk from the Via Hotel right into the ballpark. I loved it. It's family owned and operated. It was the first hotel built in the fastest growing area of San Francisco. And of course, we're talking about Mission Bay in the South Beach neighborhood. It's got premier private event space. The rooftop at the Via Hotel is a great place to have a meeting, an event, and just a beautiful view of the ballpark in downtown San Francisco. It's at the intersection of sports, entertainment, and technology. For more information, visit hotelviasf.com or call 415-200-4977. Or you can email them at info@hotelviasf.com. Staying at the Hotel Via is an experience you don't want to miss. Fans, it's great to have you back with us as we get ready for Giants baseball today. The Giants and Phillies, game 2 of this 4-game series. Phils win last night 4-3. We're joined by Gordon Wittenmyer, and of course we love talking ball with Gordy over the years. He covers the Reds now for the Cincinnati Enquirer, and the Reds are a story once again. Gordy, nice to have you with us. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Marty?
Very well, very well. You know, it's early in the season, 33 games down, and everyone's ready to panic, but it's a long, long baseball season, so we have to keep reminding everyone of that. But you had quite a night last night, a rain delay in Cincinnati. The rain delay was longer than the game.
Yeah, thank God for the pace of the game, right? And all the new rules. Yeah, 2 hours, 41 minutes. We sat around waiting for that thing, and I think the game took 2:30, just under or over 2:30. Crazy. You know what the worst part about it was? The Reds, when they announced that the game was going to go into delay, said, we don't anticipate it to be a very long delay. Why?
Well, yeah, sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. But the Reds come in next weekend to San Francisco, so I'm glad to get you on today. Ellie De La Cruz. Gordy, we talked about him so much last year, and he sort of was a strikeout machine and a work in progress. But, man, he has turned the game around. Let's talk Ellie De La Cruz because we're going to get to see him next weekend.
He is – I don't think this is really overstating it. He's the Cincinnati Reds offense the first month of the year. I mean, they opened with key injuries, a PED suspension to a rookie that was supposed to play a big role in their lineup, and then they had a flu bug go through the clubhouse that took guys down for 2 to 4 days at a time, just kind of one at a time, and for a while they're 2 at a time. And he remains one of only 2 players that hasn't missed a game this year, and on top of that has produced at a high level. A particularly high level after struggling the first week to 10 days of the season. It's really been astonishing, honestly. I mean, because he's a really raw player. Last night was his 130th big league game.
Wow.
And this was a guy who came on the scene in a big way last year, 5 weeks, became a household name across baseball, hit for the cycle, was part of a 12-game winning streak, hit huge, like, tape measure home runs, also recorded the hardest throw by a fielder in the game last year, was recorded at the fastest sprint speed of anybody in the game. He did all this within 5 weeks, and then the second half of last season struggled. He was one of the worst performers just in terms of hitting and getting on base and so on in baseball. And so we went into this season not knowing what to expect from such a young, raw player. And to say that he's, exceeded expectations is the ultimate understatement.
Well, what a month, though, of baseball with all the home runs and stolen bases. And I'm looking at the Reds' stolen bases. They've got 56 as a team. But what he accomplished in 1 month is just mind-boggling. That, to me, when I saw that and realized what he had done last year at the end of the year when he really struggled, I said, wow, how do you turn this around like that?
Yeah, check this out, Marty. He's got 19 stolen bases in 22 attempts. I want to say 2 of those caught stealings, he beat the throw and then slid past the bag. So the 19 stolen bases by himself. There's 13 teams in baseball that don't have that many stolen bases. And 4 of them don't have that many attempts. In an age where that's been encouraged with the new rules changes. So it really is amazing. The other thing, we talk about, his skill set is off the charts, and we knew this is in there. Like we certainly knew this was in there. He's had 3 and 4 strikeout games along the way too, so that's always in there too, like it is with any player. But the thing that you wonder about is just from a sheer sort of stamina standpoint, how long could he keep it up? And now he's only 22 years old, so maybe he's got a couple of years of being able to really to go this hard every day for a long time. But he plays shortstop, right? And he's got a big body that he carries around. And last night on his stolen base, he attempted one, foul ball, goes back. Attempted another one, and there was batter interference, so he got sent back. Then attempted again and stole the base. So that was a 270-foot stolen base. He attempts so many stolen bases, you sometimes forget just how many times he exerts that energy and that effort. And so you wonder how that plays in July and August when the season starts to get really long, and whether he has to dial it back a little bit or maybe get some days off minimum.
Wow. Well, we get to see him next weekend in San Francisco. Probably the most exciting player right now in Major League Baseball. Gordon Wittenmyer with us. Gordy, we love talking ball with him. He covers the Reds for the Cincinnati Enquirer. Gordy, what about the division? And I was looking yesterday at the American League Central, your former team, the Twins. They don't lose. They won 11 in a row. And now the National League Central, all of a sudden, the Cubs, the Brewers, the Reds, you got to deal with them, and the Cardinals are not that bad with Sonny Gray on the mound. What do you think about this division?
I was looking at it a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know where it stands exactly right now, but it was surprising to me that this division that we all sort of dismissed going in as maybe the worst in the National League and one of the two worst in baseball, actually everybody in the division was at least 500 outside the division. And I think that's still the case for four of the teams. And so you've seen very competitive baseball in that division. The Cubs, to me, are more surprising than anybody else. And I know people say, well, the Brewers traded Corbin Burns and lost Josh Hader, and so what they're doing is amazing. Sure. But the Cubs had their opening day starter go down on opening day. Kyle Hendricks, who was had been one of the best big game pitchers in the game for about 5 years, was expected to do a lot for them. He hasn't done anything for them. They're relying on kids. Jamison Tyone opened on the IL, and they've been getting really shaky performances out of their bullpen. And they've got Cody Bellinger and Seiya Suzuki on the IL right now. So all of that, and they've actually been they've played better over the last 3 weeks than the opening 2 or 3 weeks. So they've been a real surprise to me. If they start to get healthy, who knows what happens? And the Reds are getting a lot of pitching. They doubled down on pitching depth in the offseason. Not big names, but guys that are helping you out. You guys know Frankie Montas pretty well and what kind of pitcher he is when he's healthy. He's looked good. He comes back from the IL on Tuesday for them, just a bruise on his forearm. He got hit by a line drive. They get full strength with their lineup. They could be really dangerous over the last 3 or 4 months of the season. And so it was an interesting division going in because there seems so much parity for all the wrong reasons. Now it's a really intriguing division because of what the ceiling might be for about maybe 3 of these teams.
Well, when you can pitch, you're in it, and we'll see Montas next weekend if he's going Tuesday against Arizona. Imagine we'll see him at the end of the weekend. But, Hunter Green is throwing, scoreless inning after scoreless inning. Lodolo, I love this kid, the left-hander. Walks 1, strikes out 11, coming back from the injury. Ashcraft always gave the Giants trouble, always did. Abbott is the lefty, and then Nick Martinez hasn't done that much, but I loved him last year with the Padres. The Reds' pitching is pretty good.
It really is. And Nick Martinez, if you go look at his numbers and you look at his starter relief splits and you say, well, he's just terrible as a starter, that's not really the story. The story of his statistics is that he's got that one inning against San Diego a few days ago. He had a really weird inning that included a catcher's interference and a misplay, and it wound up being 4 runs. That's the kind of an inning that he's had like each time out. And so, even the guy that's on your depth chart, number 6, is giving you really competitive starts when he's out there. You're right, Marty. Matter of fact, I was thinking about this. I put this question to somebody in the clubhouse yesterday, just about kind of like they're playing the Orioles right now. So, you kind of look at it, and if everything were to fall right and they get to the playoffs, what does this look like a playoff rotation? And then if it does, who's the guy that drops out of the top 5? I mean, is it Abbott? Well, probably, maybe. He's a lefty, so is it a matchup question? And are his innings totally? He's a second-year guy. Are his innings an issue? Because otherwise, who's it going to be? Ashcraft, Frankie Montas, if he's healthy, he's got to be in there. Hunter Green has turned a corner in terms of being consistent. This was your opening day starter last year with the 100-mile-an-hour fastball. He looks like a more mature pitcher this year. And Lodolo, my God, he's their best pitcher. He's been pitching like a Cy Young candidate, which is what we always thought he had in him, a hard thrower with just an unhittable breaking ball when it's on. He comes at you with all these tall left-handed angles. He's a force to be reckoned with now that he's healthy. So, yeah, it's a really interesting question and an interesting team to watch. I don't know if they'll get there. They've got all kinds of issues with the lineup and scoring, and they've got a tough schedule right now. But if they do, they've got pitchers.
Yeah, and you only need 3 or 4 in the playoffs anyway, and they have about 6 of them. But look,
look at the Diamondbacks, right?
Yeah, that's 4 pitchers, and give me a bullpen, and I'll win a pennant for you. Hey, but they're hitting .214, and they're not slugging very much, really, when you look at it. And look, this ballpark is made for hitting. How come they're not hitting?
Because they haven't had their guys. Look, when they are at full strength or what they projected as full strength, you had to already account for very little margin because they don't have veterans. They don't have an all-star in there. They're very, very young. So they were already going to be a team that could go either way, and that's why they added Jamer Candelario, who's actually been kind of a disappointment for a veteran guy who once led the league in doubles and was expected to be a stabilizer in there. He's only been a stabilizer in the sense that he's been relatively healthy from the start of the season. So when they've had other guys go down, he's been able to play every day, but he hasn't performed yet. You would expect that he would, progress to the mean of his career at some point. But between injuries and illnesses and just the lack of a margin that they began with, maybe it's not all that surprising. And that's why I say, who knows if they get there? There's still a lot they have to prove as a young team, especially in that lineup, to suggest that they're a playoff caliber team. The guys that are out, even the guys that are out, like Noel Marte, he's got 6 weeks in the big leagues, and he got popped for steroids. So what's he going to be when he comes back? Who knows? What was he going to be anyway if he hadn't got popped for PEDs? Who knows? TJ Friedel, their center fielder from a year ago, 17 bunt hits last year, led the majors. He's an igniter, a clubhouse guy, and sort of a tone setter for how aggressive he plays. And he's one of their best 2 defenders. Losing him to a wrist injury is a big deal. He should be back within a week or so. But last year was his first full year in the big leagues. So that's volatility built into that inexperience. And then Matt McClain was a rookie last year, their best performer when he was healthy. He's out maybe for the year. They're talking like he might come back from the shoulder surgery in August. It's his non-throwing shoulder, so there's that. But who knows what he'll be as a hitter when he comes back recovering from a shoulder. And again, the experience level. So that was a best-case scenario if all those guys were there from the beginning, and they're obviously not, and it could go either way.
Well, we'll see him next weekend, and I love the bullpen. Suter, he's always trouble, the lefty. Cruz, you can't hit him, and Diaz's brother is there as well. So this is going to be fun. There's a lot of teams in this middle group. The Giants really one of them as well. So this is going to be a good series next weekend. Gordy, a pleasure to have you on as always. This is going to be fun.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll look forward to seeing you at the ballpark.
All right. It'll be great. Thanks for having me, Marty.
Oh, anytime. That is Gordon Wittenmyer, Cincinnati Enquirer. More coming up. KNBR 680, 104.5, the sports leader. Fans just like baseball, Georgie Brothers Furniture is full of tradition as they've served the Bay Area for over 90 years. Still a third-generation family-owned furniture showroom. Their talented staff work as a team to help their customers select the best pieces of furniture to invest in. The 50,000 square foot showroom is full of over 150 wonderful manufacturers. One of the most popular furniture lines I love and own are Stressless chairs. Stressless makes all kind of high-quality furniture, including sectional sofas, love seats, single reclining chairs, as well as the classic Stressless chair and ottoman. Now, starting March 29th and running all the way through May 28th, there is a great sale on Stressless furniture right here at Georgie Brothers. Visit the Stressless Gallery today. You'll find something that you love. That's Georgie Brothers in South San Francisco since 1933, the best source for home furnishings, or visit them at georgiebrothers.com. That's GIORGIBROS.com. Remember, tell them that Marty sent you. Fans, it's great to have you back with us as we get ready for Giants baseball today. We're joined by Sarah Sanchez. We love having her on. She's a baseball analyst who divides her time between her love of the Cubs and fantasy baseball. She's written for Fangraphs, Baseball Prospectus, and currently contributes to Pitcher List, Baseball HQ, Bleed Cubby Blue, and the Fans First Sports Network. This is the best part. She's powered by Nitro Cold Brew, Rosé, and the vibes in the left field bleachers at Wrigley Field. You can follow her work on social media at BCB_Sarah, S-A-R-A, no H, on the Sarah. Sarah, welcome to the show. It's always a lot of fun to talk Cubs baseball with you.
Yeah, absolutely, Marty. Thanks for having me back, and looking forward to chatting a little bit of baseball here for the first time in the 2024 season.
Yeah, the Cubs are a good story, as always. So I'm glad to have you on. I was watching the game the other day. The ivy is growing, which means things are happening in Chicago. But let's talk about this team and, number one, the new manager and how he's doing and how accepted he is in Chicago. And now you got the Brewers in town playing the Cubs. Let's talk a little Craig Counsell.
You know, Craig Counsell has been excellent, and I think there is a reason that the Cubs were excited to make him the highest paid manager in the sport. He just brings transparency and knowledge of the game that I think has been missing in Chicago for a while. And for the record, this is no shade to David Ross, who I firmly believe will manage again at some point in the future and will be an excellent manager. I don't think that the Cubs would have let David Ross go for just anyone. But with Craig Counsell, they're getting someone who is such a strong developer of young players. He's been particularly impactful with the way he's handled Pete Crow Armstrong, who had to start the season in AAA after the Cubs re-signed Cody Bellinger. That's a potentially sensitive conversation, right? And if you listen to Pete Crow Armstrong talk about it, he is so grateful for the transparency that he received from Counsell about what his role was, what he was expected to do, and it's made PCA a better player. So I'm hopeful that that will trickle down into all the young player development that the Cubs have. They have quite the prospect system right now, and I've loved watching him manage games so far.
Boy, interesting. I'm glad you brought up Pete Crow Armstrong. I saw his first major league hit, and it was a big hit a home run. And this is a young man who came over from the Mets in a big trade, and I expect a lot out of him. Is he going to play for this team?
Well, he is, at least for as long as Cody Bellinger is out. And let me tell you, I was at Wrigley Field when Pete Crow Armstrong hit that home run. It was absolutely electric. Screaming, lost my voice for a few minutes after that. He's going to play for a while. He's the best defensive center fielder that the Cubs have had in my memory since at least Reed Johnson. He makes plays out there look easy that are absolutely not easy. And the only question mark with him coming into the season was whether or not he was going to be able to hit. As you recall, he came up last September and did not record a hit that was not a bunt in any of his time in the majors. And I think that was frustrating for him. So to watch him unleash and hit a fastball, it was a no doubt home run as well, like very deep in the right field bleachers. Was super fun. He's got quite a few big hits since then, and he's got a lot of speed on the base pass, so he can put some pressure on the other team.
Well, we'll see. Cody Bellinger's got to come back. We'll catch up with that report on him in just a second with you. Sarah Sanchez with us. Sarah, the Brewers are in town, and the Cubs looked yesterday, 1-0. Looked like Morel hit another home run, 3 homers in 5 days, and all of a sudden, the 8th inning, they bring in that Azalea, who's really struggled out of the bullpen, and the Brewers win it 3-1 yesterday. That was a heartbreaker.
It is a heartbreaker for Cubs fans. It is a particular heartbreaker for me. Adbert Alzolay is one of my favorite Cubs. I was there for his MLB debut. I watched him sort of work his way through injuries as a starter and then transform himself into what looked like last year just a dominant reliever. If you recall, he converted every save opportunity he had last season except for one. He came into this season, there were some question marks as to whether he was going to be the closer or whether Counsell would go more of like a bullpen by committee. But he did get like the first 6 closing opportunities, and he just couldn't stick the landing. I think there's a couple of things going on with Adbert. His stuff has always been susceptible to left-handed hitters. Last season, he was able to work on tunneling in such a way that he was able to do much better against left-handed hitters. This year, that has not been the case. And it seems like everything that Adbert misses on even slightly doesn't just get hit hard. It gets hit hard for extra bases. So I am optimistic that he will be a solid member of the bullpen going forward. But I do think there's some things they have to work out mechanically with him. I also think if we're being totally transparent, the bullpen is the weakest link in this Cubs system right now, and it was one that was predictably weak coming into the offseason. I'm sort of furious that Jed Hoyer didn't do more about it.
Well, Mark Leiter's doing well. I've seen him a couple of times. Why don't they let him close?
Well, they might at some point because Hector Neris, as you've probably seen, who is nominally the closer right now, has more walks than strikeouts, which is never a thing you want from the man trying to end the game. But you can't really run a bullpen with 2 reliable arms. You need like a 7th, 8th, and 9th inning guy. Ideally, you need a long middle reliever and a 7th, 8th, and 9th inning guy in case your starter fumbles a little bit. And what the Cubs have found themselves in is their supposed closer, one of the guys who's supposed to be in that 7, 8, 9 role, Alzolay, is struggling and really can't be trusted in high leverage right now. You've got Julian Merriweather, who was also part of that 7th, 8th, 9th inning stretch last season, who is on the 60-day injured list with, I believe it is stress fractures in his ribs, and I'm not entirely sure how that happened, but he's out probably until June or July. And so you've basically got 2 guys, Leiter, who, as you mentioned, has been excellent, and Neris, who has not been excellent but has gotten the results so far. And then it's a big question mark as to how you're going to end games. Counsell has been creative here. Oh, I was just going to say, Counsell has been creative here and done the best he could. It's honestly a miracle that the Cubs find themselves at a 19-13 or 19-14 record going into today, as he's just really been great leveraging those middle relievers. But the other problem he has is those middle relievers are getting taxed as well. Injuries to Tyon and Steele at the start of the season. Then a lot of the guys who should be your long men in the pen have been starting for the Cubs. I'm talking about Ben Brown and Hayden Wesneski. So that is a long-term problem for the Cubs, and I hope it gets solved quickly.
Boy, great report, Sarah Sanchez. Boy, you know your stuff. I was going to say, yeah, the bullpen, you described it earlier, is the issue, and you need more than 2 or 3 people in the bullpen to make it happen. Let's talk about this division, though. The Brewers are in town. It's always exciting. Look, Counsell is going up against his old team, and he had a great game yesterday. Let's talk about this National League Central, because the Cubs, as you say, with 14 losses, they're right there. The Brewers 20-11. They've won 20 games in 31 games. For the first time they've done that in years. Well, what about this division?
Oh, I mean, it has been one of the best divisions in baseball, up there with the work that is being done by the Phillies and Braves in the National League East. And honestly, it's a tighter race and a stronger division at this moment in time than the National League West, where everybody thought the Dodgers, Padres, and Giants and Diamondbacks would put on a little bit more of a show than anybody in the Central. I think a couple of things are going on. The Cubs have had outstanding starting pitching, even with losing their ace in Steele and probably their number 2 starter in Tyon, and a guy they expected to get a lot of innings from in Hendricks at the start of the season. Shota Imanaga has come over, and he's an ace. He's incredible. There's nothing bad I can say about him. If your fans have not watched Shota pitch yet, you have to. It is strikeout stuff, swing and miss. He doesn't walk guys, and he's just electric on the mound. It is so fun to watch. Ben Brown has come up from AAA and had quite the rookie debut, honestly. I've been really impressed with what I've seen from Brown so far, but maybe the pitcher who is holding this team together more than anyone else is Javier Assad, who just keeps going out there and putting up an ERA right around 2.2, despite the fact that nobody believes he should be able to do it, and I am here for that.
Well, we get the Reds next weekend. What do you think about the Reds right now?
The Reds are such a fascinating team. They're sitting at 500 right now. They're 16-16, but Ellie De La Cruz might be the most electric player that we've seen in this sport in years. I mean, I honestly can't think of the last time a rookie came up and was able to generate so much excitement. If he gets on base and the path is clear in front of him, he's going to steal second. He's going to steal third. He might steal home. He's just such a fun player to watch, and he absolutely murders the baseball every time he makes contact with it. But Ellie's not the only one doing great things for the Reds. I mean, Spencer Steer is a guy who can play multiple positions and give you a plus at bat at any point in time. Their pitching is super interesting, too. It's a lot of guys with like 98, 99-mile-hour velocity who strike out a ton of guys. The problem for them is that they play in a really hitter-friendly baseball park, and so their pitchers don't get quite the love that you would expect them to, given the swing and miss stuff they have.
Well, the surprise for me, as I said earlier, they've got 20 wins already, and it's the Brewers. I didn't see this coming. Pat Murphy, of course, was the mentor for Craig Counsell, and he was the coach at Notre Dame when Craig played there. But I didn't see this coming with the Brewers. First of all, Contreras is crushing the ball. This little second baseman, Terang, is terrific. And they don't have their closer. How are the Brewers doing this?
You know, the Brewers have been a really interesting team to watch, and I honestly think that what the Brewers have done this year is flip the script a little bit. In previous iterations of the Brewers' dominance in this division, they had the best starting pitching in the division, but frankly, their offense was sort of bad. It was about 30% worse than league average. Their offense this season is spectacular. You mentioned William Contreras. He's one of the best hitters in the sport right now, not just one of the best hitting catchers in the sport, but literally one of the best hitters in the sport, top 5 or 10, depending on where you're looking at the day. And Bryce Terang, who you mentioned, he was always supposed to be a guy whose defense would keep in the lineup. He was always supposed to be a guy who would steal some bases. He was never supposed to be a guy who hit 300, and that's what the Brewers are getting out of him right now. It's worth noting that they've done all of this offensively without Christian Yelich, who's been on the injured list for about a couple weeks now, and I don't know when he's coming back. So it's been super impressive to watch this Brewers team. And, you know, we were talking about the Cubs bullpen. The Brewers are doing this without their closer. Devin Williams is also on the injured list until at least June or July with stress fractures in his back. They're really closer by committee right now between Yoel Payamps and Trevor McGill. They sent Abner Uribe back to AAA after that scuffle between the Rays that resulted in a pretty lengthy suspension for him.
Boy, that is Sarah Sanchez. I love talking ball with her, and she'll be on again. The Cubs are right in the middle of this thing. Boy, good baseball. I appreciate it. Sarah, thank you so much. Let's talk to Carrie Crowley, who's coming up next with our Giants warm-up. Carrie, how are you?
Oh, Marty, always doing well when I get to talk to you. How are you this Saturday afternoon?
Hey, I love being on the stream. It's fun. I'm arguing with the guy on the screen. That's me.
Really puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's great. It's not like I'm just sitting here, just spouting off numbers and stuff. I'm actually acting for the guy I'm looking at, which is me. So
yeah,
it's interesting doing it. This has been a lot of fun for me to do it.
Yeah, it's a little different. I've done it all week, and I'll tell you what, Marty, 15 hours of screen time might be a little more than the listeners bargained for those people who are interested in what my face looks like. I think they like the 2 hours that they get from you. You're a nice change of pace for them.
Well, I got the background and I got all the pictures up and all that stuff, so it's fun. But, hey, I listened to you last night with Glenn, and I thought you guys really broke the game down really well last night. And I guess the big news is Patrick Bailey is on the injured list, the concussion protocol, whatever you want to call it, and Blake Sable is up. That's not good.
No, it's not good, and especially considering Patrick Bailey's career injury history and his concussion history, we just hope that everything's okay with him because, just from a personal standpoint, that's a very scary injury. It's the one that can impact your day-to-day life, and so you hope that everything's okay with him. And from a team standpoint, Marty, he's about the last person the Giants need going on the injured list right now. It's been a relatively healthy season to date for their position player group, but Patrick Bailey has been the one guy who they've been able to count on to put up consistent efforts offensively, defensively, and you saw it last night with Patrick Bailey out of the game, Trey Turner coming from second to home on that pitch that really, if Bailey was in the game, it would have been a called strike 3 because Hicks threw a beautiful splitter up in the zone. It had great downward break to it, and everything spiraled from that point forward for the Giants. And so Patrick Bailey is about as big of a loss as this team can have, in my opinion.
Yeah, the umpire never would have called that a strike.
You don't think so?
No, he was awful all night. He couldn't call that pitch.
Yeah, he
that's
was
the
awful.
one pitch he kept calling a ball that was up and in on the batter. But Murphy, Glenn broke it down beautifully, and I'll talk to Glenn tomorrow about it on our show. That Murphy, first he didn't catch it, then he thought he did catch it, then he couldn't find it, and then he threw like a wide throw to Hicks. And Turner got in there. But, hey, look, Trey Turner, Raph told me 6 weeks.
Yep.
He's going to be out 6 weeks with the hamstring. What about that?
It's a huge blow to this Phillies lineup, and honestly, it's a huge blow to fans of baseball in Philadelphia because he's really fun to watch. He's the type of player who, when he goes second to home, there's a belief inside the ballpark that he's going to make it because he's got that track record. He's got that ability to just sniff things out on the bases and understand where he needs to be, understand where the opponent is. And last night he saw that Jordan Hicks wasn't standing close enough to home plate that, he could test Tom Murphy, the backup catcher who's not known for his arm. And in that situation, it was absolutely the right move to do. And so it's a huge loss for the Phillies. The Giants lose Patrick Bailey for, at least the next 7 days on the concussion IL, but Trey Turner 6 weeks on the injured list. This is someone who can be the heart and soul of a lineup when he's healthy. We saw it back 2 years ago in the World Baseball Classic, Marty. He was the heart and soul of Team USA at that point. And it's not good for baseball when someone like Trey Turner's out with an injury because he is someone who I'd pay to go to the yard to go watch.
No, absolutely. They're going to run today. Sable's not in the lineup. I'm sure you saw the lineup. It's Slater leading off. We talked about him. I want to talk to him about him with you. But Estrada, they moved up to second, which I like.
Yeah.
Lee, then Flores is in today, then Chapman, Soler, Murphy. Fitzgerald is in today, and Ahmed. So they got Fitzgerald in. I wanted him in the lineup, but I thought give Ahmed a rest, but they're giving Conforto the rest against the lefty today. But I like Fitzgerald being in there.
Fitzgerald's got to play, Marty. He's got to play, and I'm glad you brought that up, that you wanted him in the lineup for Ahmed, because I did as well. And I guess it makes sense with how good Ranger Suarez has been against left-handers. Heck, how good he's been against everyone, a 1.32 ERA this season. But the Giants don't have team speed. They don't have athleticism. They're not putting the ball in play enough. Tyler Fitzgerald is the one guy who, hey, if you put him in there, maybe bat him toward the top of the lineup, the Giants can make things happen on the bases. It's a team that, you get him and Jung-Hoo Lee together, maybe there's a way where, you don't have to rely on the 3-run home run to win a ball game. And this is not a Giants team that scored more than 3 runs in a game since April 23rd now. We're sitting here on May 4th. You need to give Fitzgerald 2 or 3 more starts on this road trip alone. I'm glad to see him in the lineup today, but I'd really like to see him at shortstop a few of these games because they're getting nothing from Nick Ahmed's bat, which they knew was a potential, Marty.
Yeah, Ahmed's fine. He makes all the plays. As Bruce Jenkins said, you got to make all the plays, which he does. But you got to, Fitzgerald gives you an option offensively to get something going. So, yeah, I'd like to see him in there. Slater leads off today. And I know you talked about him last night as well. I think we're almost at a crossroads with him. Not quite. It's so early in the season. You can't really say that. But he's going to get this start today. He'll start Monday. He'll probably start against Gomber. He may start against Abbott with Cincinnati next weekend. At some point, he's got to deliver. At some point, he's got to deliver. And I think this is a big week for him. And frankly, I think he should play more because you just can't bring him every once in a while off the bench for an at-bat and expect to get anything out of him. And then Flores is the same thing. Yeah. You got to figure out a way to get these guys in the lineup, not just against left-handed pitching.
I am right there with you. You know this better than anyone, Marty. I hate to agree with you, but
yes,
I think that you're right. I think that you're right here, and I think you said it well with Slater that the Giants clearly view that they're not quite at the crossroads yet. Because if they were, Slater would be hitting lower in the lineup right now. If Slater was truly in jeopardy of losing his roster spot for this team and they wanted to bring up Elliot Ramos, I think you'd see Slater starting against a left-hander, but maybe hitting in the 6 or 7 slot in the order. Today, he's still in the leadoff hole for the Giants. He's got the 100 average on the season, a 370 OPS. The sample size incredibly small, but it's getting late early. It's May 4th, and you just mentioned the lineup of left-handers that the Giants are going to face. It's Ranger Suarez today. It's Austin Gomber against Colorado next week. It's Andrew Abbott, who's really good for the Cincinnati Reds. At least, when I saw him, he had great stuff last year. He really impressed me. And if Slater struggles over this next stretch, I think then you're going to start to see him slip in the lineup, and then there are going to be real questions inside the organization about what happens. But this is the week, and Marty, this is about the point in Mike Yastrzemski's season when he was about 40 plate appearances in when he started to turn things around. Yastrzemski's been a much better player over the last 3 weeks than he was for the first 3 weeks of the season. He, unlike Slater, had the ability to face right-handed pitching, and he has the favorable platoon, so he's in the lineup more because of that. Now it's on Slater to turn things around because they're showing a ton of confidence in him, putting him at the top of the order. Quite frankly, Marty, I'd like to see Fitzgerald batting up there right now. I want to see speed. I want to see someone who gives the Giants an element that other teams aren't accustomed to seeing from this team, but we'll see Fitzgerald at the bottom, and maybe he can do something that makes things happen today.
Well, you put him at the end, and then you get Slater leading off. If you get both of them on there, you can do something. At least they both can run a little bit. Now, I wouldn't put Fitzgerald at the top of the lineup because I think you put too much pressure on him offensively. But look, Slater makes a lot of money. He's not going to get traded. He's not going to get released. He's not going to get DFA'd. That's not ever going to happen. But he could get IL'd. If his elbow is a problem and he's not hitting, that could be something that could come up. What do you do about Flores?
Yeah,
I've got Rick Smith, one of my dear friends. He texts me every other day, put Flores in. Where are you going to put him? Because you can't sit Wade down. Really, he's one of the best hitters. And no matter what you think of Chapman, he's got to play. Chapman must play. Soler and Chapman have got to play. You cannot mess around with either one of them. You got to get them going.
Now, this is a huge dilemma, Marty, and here's my idea, and I'll admit it's an idea that I have but don't necessarily like, and I'm not even sure if the Giants should put it into practice, but if you wanted to get Wilmer Flores more consistent at bats, you run him out there at second base, you put Tyro Estrada at shortstop, and then you change the line around the 5th or 6th inning, depending on... Yeah, I know, you hate it. You hate it. You hate it, but you get Wilmer Flores those at-bats. You get the at-bats.
You're looking at the
stream.
My hands are up on the stream right now. Stop.
Well,
I'm putting the stop
Marty,
sign up.
Can the offense get worse? I don't think so. I mean,
well,
maybe.
It's too early to get crazy. Let's put it that way. It's like George Costanza. Don't get crazy yet. Don't get crazy yet. We got a long way to go. You got 129 more games, but Glenn said it last night. This is a stretch. You don't want to get buried here. And they need Snell. They need Snell big time. They need him to come back, and if he needs 2 rehab starts, give it to him, because when he comes back to the big leagues, he better be ready.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at last night's ball game, Marty, and it was Chapman, it was Soler, it was Tom Murphy, it was everyone that Farhan has signed to make an impact on this season, struggling in the biggest moments of last night's ball game. And Blake Snell unavailable right now, who was the big ticket acquisition for this rotation to really put them over the edge and help them win a playoff series. And right now they're sitting at 15 and 18, and their focus is on getting back to 500, not getting into the wild card position. So to say that they need Snell is an understatement right now. This team needs a lot of things, but I think all the players that they paid, and look, I advocated for them to sign Chapman. I thought the Soler signing was great. I think you take your chance on a guy who hit 36 home runs last year. You do that when you can replace Mitch Haniger, but so far it hasn't worked out. And to me, it's not necessarily on the front office or the coaching staff. It is simply on these players need to start producing to the back of their baseball cards, or it's going to be a long year.
Yeah, that's right. Well, they got 129 more games to go. And that's why you can't panic. But look, as I said on the show today, the Mets have 16 losses, Washington 16, the Reds 16, Cardinals 17, Padres 18, Giants 18. There's a whole mishmash of teams in the middle of this thing, and we've got a long way to go. It's going to be a great story. And you can't give up on Chapman, Soler, and the rest of them. You just got to let them play. But you have to tinker just a little bit, and that's the thing. What do you do Monday with Mason Black? You bring him in, or
absolutely. You know me, Marty. I'm all aboard Mason Black train. I think that he should have started this week at Fenway Park. I think the Giants made a mistake in that regard, keeping Dalton Jeffries to pitch in the bulk innings role. Black has been the best pitcher in the PCL. He has dominated there. I would really like to see him Monday. He's, I think, a Pennsylvania guy, so you have the opportunity to give him the start. I know it didn't go well for Kyle Harrison last year in his debut at Citizens Bank, and Bryce Harper homering off of him in the first inning. But, what are your other options? Coors Field against the Dodgers at home. There just isn't a good situation. You have to find something to do to fill this black hole that's been the 5th slot in the rotation. I think Mason Black's the answer. Marty, I did want to ask, and you may have touched on this earlier, I haven't heard your thoughts on the Luis Arias trade. I know that you're big on him as a ball player, and he's going into San Diego, and the National League West gets that much more challenging for the Giants.
I love it. I said it to Bruce. The Padres do things. They're not afraid to do things. They'll trade the 7th, 9th, 13th prospect they've got and get Arias, and their first pick from last year, he goes in the deal. Jung-Ho Lee's brother-in-law goes in the deal. I love it. I think it's great. I'd love to see Farhan be a little more aggressive on the trade front and do things like that. I think it's huge. I think Arias is like a Tony Gwynn, and I think he'll help the Padres a lot. Padres, as I said last week, they're a little better than I think. Yeah. They're a little better than I think. I'm not ready to write them off yet. We'll see. I
agree with you. I hate to say it, you know that, but I agree with you there. They are better than we think. They're better than their record right now. It's not like last year. It's not the same old Padres this year where they're just going to hover around 500 and be a disappointment at the end of the season. They've got some real staying power because of their lineup right now, and it got that much deeper with Luis Arias.
Well, they're hanging around with Cronenworth and Profar leading the team in RBIs. I mean,
Jurickson Profar is the all-star this year for San Diego.
Cronenworth's got like 27 RBIs or something like that. And you talk about Tatis and the rest of them. So, the Padres are going to have to be dealt with. I like the trade. I like everything. But my point, listening to you guys last night, it was a pleasure hearing you, and you've done a great job all week. There's so much more baseball to go. There's just so much more to go. And if you keep the pitching the way it is, and Jelly was great last night, the good end of the bullpen is still very solid. I like Jackson. I think he's going to be fine. And I think it's just a question of letting these guys hit and let it happen and just not panic. That's my feeling.
Well, I'm panicking. So
I know you are. I know.
No patience. I'm out of the everyday beat writing,
Little butter cake from Original Joe's. A little
that'll settle me down.
Send you to Bridge Bank and meet the people there, and
you've got my whole life figured out for me, Marty.
That's it. Well, you're doing beautifully. I love talking ball with you. So
always,
have a good show, and I'll talk to you next week. All right.
Looking forward to it, Marty.
Thanks, Carrie. All right, here comes Carrie Crowley with our Giants warm-up.